Welcome to today's episode of A Facilitator's Journey. Today I'm talking to Beth Cougler Blom all about being 51 and what that means to both of us in our businesses. The epiphanies we had, the boundaries we are now demarcating in our lives, what we want to be doing and what we don't want to be doing, and some of those ahas that we've had in our experiences. So this is a really great episode if you are in your third chapter. A phrase I've heard recently from the lovely Remy Baker. Also, la troisième is what the French call it, the third semester. So if this is you, or you're even curious and starting to think about what are you going to do when you start to get in your 50s and your 60s, hop into this conversation. I encourage you now to get a cup of tea, pull up a chair, come join me on the pink sofa and enjoy this episode. Okay, Beth, hello. Welcome to A Facilitator's Journey.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm slightly getting over a cold, but I feel I can still talk and have a good time with you today.
It's that time of year.
It's that time of year. Yeah, but other than that, I'm good, really good.
Welcome. Beth, I say to all the guests, how do we know each other? How did we meet? What's your recollection?
I had to look it up actually, because I heard you ask another guest this recently, and I knew it was social media, and I was pretty sure it was Instagram. So I looked up to see if we had chatted in Instagram, and that was it. You reached out to me. I think it was, 3 years ago now? Almost 3 years ago. But it was so neat because when you reached out and said you offered to be on my podcast, and of course you eventually were on my podcast, way to go, putting yourself out there. But when you did that, I already knew who you were because I had been following you. And so it was like, oh, Kirsty's reaching out. This is great. And blah, blah, blah. So we just, I think, immediately connected because I had been following you already. So it was meant to be.
Thank you. As most of our listeners know, that is very atypical Kirsty. Like,
is it?
There's someone interesting in social media. I follow them and then I'm like, oh, I need to know you somehow, or I need to talk to you for some reason. And I've got over that worry of going, oh, is it okay? Like, oh, should I or shouldn't I? I think, and I don't know about you with other people doing this, is like, if people reach out to me on social media with like a question or I noticed this but it's something around facilitation and training, I really don't mind. I will be there in an instant.
Yeah.
It's the people who go, hi, Kirsty, I have been analyzing your YouTube numbers and I think you should change this. And you're like, go away.
Oh, I know. And they tell you how you're terrible, like you're not really hitting it out of the park. And by the way, do you want to hire them? It's like, no, I don't think I need to respond. But everybody else that's just a normal human being, I will respond. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think I'm just flagging this for anyone listening who sometimes thinks, is it okay to say hello or reach out? Yes. And just as Beth described, I was quite brazen and said, please, can I be on your podcast? And I think if people do that, I've got no problem, but tell me why. I think sometimes we need a bit of a, especially when you don't know someone, you need a bit of pitch.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just sort of that piece where that they have been consuming is a bad word, but they have been watching you and they have been learning from you or whatever, appreciating what you're putting out in the world, and they've paid attention. And so then it seems like a real connection, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Versus, and I'm sure you get this on your podcast, people send, and it's often not the individual, but somebody says, hey, I think you should have Catherine on the podcast because she talks about this, this, and this. And I'm like, and often it's nothing to do with running a business as a facilitator or a trainer. So I'm a bit like, I don't think, no, that's not going to work. And you clearly don't know what our podcast is about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now,
somebody asked me once if there were enough people to actually have on my podcast about facilitation, designing and facilitating learning. And I was like, yes, there's a whole worldwide of people out there doing our work, right? I mean, it's endless and it's super exciting that way, but it actually can get overwhelming too. Yeah.
Strange question. Now, those of you listening and watching, you might detect an accent in Beth. Definitely not an English accent. Beth, tell the team, where are you in the world?
I am on the west coast of Canada, so it's funny because you never think you have an accent, but of course, you know, if you have British listeners, I definitely have a Canadian accent. I was born in Ontario, where Toronto is, and then when I was in my early 20s, I moved out to Vancouver and eventually came here to Victoria. So I've been in British Columbia now more than half my life, which is weird, right? When you've moved away, but it's lovely to be here and I appreciate it for many reasons. Yeah.
I love that. I always think of that part of the world of very full of lots and lots of big nature. And what I mean by that, like big trees, big vistas, big mountains.
Yeah, I live on the ocean actually, so I can see it from here and just, you know, the mountains. We can see the American Olympic Mountains from our house. And so it really is. We get all the trees and the water and the mountains, all of it.
So, and what do you do? What are you known for in the world of facilitation and training?
Well, it is so hard to describe, right? I guess I can just say I'm a learning designer, or sometimes people say instructional designer. I like learning designer. I'm a facilitator of both learning and process. So when you if you want to nerd out with us, right? Like other people might know what that means, might not know what that means, but meetings and workshops, right? I facilitate both. And then I'm an author and a podcaster, but I'm also, you know, a wife and a mom and a friend and a daughter and all those other great things. Yeah.
We are more than our work,
Canadian.
for sure.
Right now, I'm really proud to be Canadian, actually. And I won't go into it too much, but I'm super proud to be Canadian and we've got some good stuff going on here. And we're all starting to talk about it a little bit more.
like beating the American ice hockey team just last week, which I saw. And I really love that. Well, but just leave it at that. This is not a political place.
No.
Is it religious? But everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yes.
Anyway, so Beth and I, we always do prep calls for the podcast, and we were chatting like, what are we going to talk about? And Beth beautifully said, you know, if it's okay to mention age, both of us have just turned 51, and we were just saying, yeah, with age is coming some epiphanies, and we were going to talk about some of those epiphanies about within the business. We have many epiphanies, people, but it was just like this. I've noticed this from an age perspective. Like with that comes a bit more long-term wisdom. Dare I even use that word for the first time associated with me? But I was just wondering, what are some of the epiphanies you've started to have about your business as you've flipped into the 50s?
Yeah, I think some of it does come from doing the math. I think, I don't know if you felt this way too, that when you become 50 or 51, maybe it's just that big number that milestone, even though I was totally fine with being 50. I'm totally fine with being 51.
Yeah.
But you start doing the math and I started going, oh my gosh, I've been working for 30 years. You know, like I started working when I was 21, like, you know, graduated and started working after university. And it starts to feel like 30 years is a long time. And maybe there are things that I can do to make better decisions around not overworking and just getting what I want in this part of my life. And I don't know, it's complicated because I've been really lucky and have also worked hard to get to where I've gotten. But at the same time, I'm starting to tell myself, I think it's okay to back off a little bit, but back off in the right ways. Like I'm not ready to disengage from my business or my work, but there are certain things that I'm not willing to accept anymore in what I do or how I do it. And I'm trying to be a little bit more clear with myself first about what that is. And then hopefully with my clients as well, right? Because I can definitely err on the side of just being nice and taking on whatever comes my way. And that's the shift I'm trying to make. It's very hard to go, no, I'm going to say more no's and the right yeses is what I've been saying. Yeah.
I hear you. And that piece around, I think for me, like you said something earlier to me about maintaining business boundaries as well within that. And that resonated for me. What does a business boundary mean for you, Beth?
I once had a list that I shared with my women's business group here where I live, and I looked back for it. I couldn't find it. I must not have kept it, which was really stupid of me because I went to that meeting, this was several years ago, and just said, here are all the ways that I have transgressed my own boundaries in my business. And I'm trying to think of what it is, like said yes to things that I shouldn't have said yes to, taken a lower rate when I should have held my ground. Like it just goes on and on. And I was talking to Miriam Hadness actually the other day because she was just on my podcast and we talked about boundaries too. So I'll try not to repeat that conversation.
No, but it's like, I have this head. Sorry, you just said, because Miriam's a good friend as well.
Yeah.
I have this there's like this spider web of podcast hosts, and have we all been on each other's podcasts yet?
we have.
Who's spoken to you? Because then there's Leanne Hughes as well. There's Nathy. There's yourself. There's me. And all of us have been on each other's podcasts. It just makes me laugh. Sorry,
exactly. Everybody. And what was I going to go? Where I just lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? Something about boundaries. Oh, and just every problem I think I've ever had in my business is because of boundaries in some way, and maybe mostly that I haven't set it initially, say when I've taken on a contract, or I have let something kind of slide that has happened along the way and I haven't said anything about it, and I should have said, scope creep or whatever. So there's all sorts of things, and it's not always my fault, but it's sometimes it often becomes my fault because I haven't said anything. Like the client's done something that they shouldn't have done, and then I didn't say anything about it. So really it does come back to me.
I really love what you just said there. My business problems are associated to my boundaries, and it comes back to us. Here's a bit of a deep one. What work have you done to explore that? And I ask it because I know it's really something is high for me at this point.
Well, I guess a lot of it is self-talk in a way, right? Because if I tell myself, like let's say something's happening, and if I tell myself that if I set that boundary, if I mention something, chances are it's going to go okay, because I do work with great clients, and I work with almost exclusively women. I work a ton with nonprofit clients, healthcare clients. Like there's just a ton of women, and I don't want to have the men out there feel bad, but there's wonderful, wonderful men for sure. It just happens that, I tend to work a lot with women, and usually they're amazing women that I would be friends with, and some clients have become my friends. So if I say something and we have this trusting relationship, usually like we appreciate each other and we've grown that relationship, that if I say something, they usually will listen and they'll do something about it. Like the example I mentioned with Miriam was that I said something about not getting paid on time, like months and months go by, right? And you don't get paid. And it's like, finally I said, I'm going to stop working on this project if you don't pay me. And all of a sudden they find the money, right? And but even when I'm pricing and laying stuff out there with an email about pricing, and that there's always, it's weird because like, I'm 51. Like, why am I still having this conversation with myself? Like, am I worth this? And I actually have a pretty good ego and a high self-confidence. Like I don't struggle with that a lot, but I still have that thing inside me that says, are they going to be willing to pay for that? And I find myself wanting to kind of knock it down almost immediately before I even give them the chance. And I still keep going, nope, don't do that. Backspace, right? Take that part out and then just send it. And I've been doing that for years and just saying, no, I'm worth it. And I have friends that tell me I'm worth it too, right? Beth, you've written a book, you have a podcast, you've been doing this for 25 years, you're worth it. And so the more we can tell ourselves that message, it helps.
Funny, I had this conversation today, same and different, with my therapist. I'll tell everyone about my therapist, quite like it. he has turned into also a bit of supervision. And I was saying about the money thing, it's like I'm really okay talking to corporates, putting down a budget, getting a statement of work written, chasing the money, As soon as it comes to working with the community though, so like other facilitation trainers, I struggle.
Wow.
And it was a really interesting, like I've known this for a while, because one of the things I get asked a lot is, could I have a chat? Could I pick your brains? And part of me, my values sit over here on the wall, and it's like generosity and helping. And so my immediate response is yes. But then what started to happen is I give away a lot of time in a week to other people, which is great for them to pick my brain. And I lose time and
Yeah.
probably money because I can't give it into a project or SoFest or coaching. And so my therapist was like, but why don't you offer, like, he probably didn't say it because I have to say it, but like offer, like, you can have the conversation, but there's a nominal charge. And I even
Yeah.
went, oh gosh, but what would they think? And he said, does it matter what they think? So, oh yeah. But I find it that bit hard,
Yeah,
especially in
it
the
is.
community.
You know, Chad Littlefield was just talking about that. I had him on the podcast, and I saw just last week he was talking about how he had been guided to not take on the catch-up meetings, like the ketchup, the bottle of ketchup, but it's like the catch-up meetings, you know, CATH.
Yes. Oh, I think I
UP.
saw that on
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
And so people could look it up. He's very clear about not doing those kind of just random catch-up meetings. But I think what he was saying was, you know, if you're really clear about the purpose of what you want to do with that, you know, nominal catch-up meeting, then maybe, right? Like he's trying to get people to think more intentionally about,
Yeah,
rather than just going, oh, you know, I'll take your time, and, you know, for their benefit mostly, and not necessarily ours.
exactly.
Yeah.
What other business boundaries are you noticing you want to shore up? Because because I think they're there, just as you said, they're there, but it's like we forget that the water almost breaches them, and then we're like, oh bugger, I didn't keep that clean.
Yeah. Saying yes to past clients has come up for me recently. You know, folks that I loved working with are great people, but then they come back and usually, you know, say they're in the nonprofit sector. Well, I don't know, but usually, because there's lots of great things happening out there too, but sometimes they haven't found enough money for the work. And so then it just puts me in a bit of an awkward position because I'm like, oh, you know, like, I want to help you, but why didn't you talk to me first? You know, like
Yeah,
we went to apply for the grant, and we got the grant, and we got X amount of dollars. And I'm like, oh, that's such a low, like we can hardly do anything. And so I either say yes, and then we do something, you know, that I don't really think is wonderful. I'm just kind of trying to help them out, but I'm trying not to do that anymore because I'm not happy with it. Like, I don't know, if I don't want to talk about that project on social media, I shouldn't do it,
oh my
you
god, yeah,
know? But I find that the hardest thing because I'm, you know, yes, I like people. I like to help people. I like to work with, you know, nice people, but it's the project that sometimes has gotten me down recently, where I know what good learning looks like,
yeah,
particularly on the learning design side. I know what it looks like. I've been in it.
definitely.
I've experienced it. I've made it for, you know, some clients, but I somehow still keep letting some clients get away with creating more rote learning that I'm not super happy with. I
Yeah,
know all of us learning designers are in the same boat, and I'm trying not to do that anymore because it's been too long, and it's
yeah,
not serving either one of us. It's not serving the community of learning
absolutely. And
professionals.
it's being able
Yeah,
to say no,
yeah.
and that's the hardest thing.
Yeah. But I'm trying to get ahead of it and say on social media, you know, if you're a nonprofit and you're about to go for a grant and you need money to create a course, please talk to me first. Like, I'm willing to
Yes,
have the conversation and I will help you, because they don't
yeah,
know what it is. They have no idea the extent that we go to do even facilitation work, right? Like, it is like heavy prep to do a really good
yeah,
job as a facilitator of learning or
absolutely.
a designer of learning. And they
And
don't know. So we have to help them.
and
Yeah.
I think we have to teach people
Yeah.
how we want to be, teach people in this instance around how to go for the government grants or
Yeah.
the information. I think there's also another thing that we spoke about, is like we need to teach people how to treat us as individuals as well, because I think one of the things I've noticed over time is a lot of people go, oh, Kirsty will do this, Kirsty will do that. It'll always be a yes. And actually now 50-year-old Kirsty, 51-year-old Kirsty is like, no, Kirsty's in bed at 9 o'clock. She doesn't want to go out. No, that's not going to happen. Like, a friend messaged me yesterday, said, can we have a chat one evening this week? Because she's asking my advice on coaches. And I'm really happy to do that. And then I said to her, by the way, I will be in bed by 9. And then she voiced it back and went, oh, I'm so glad you said that. So will I. Let's not do that. Let's
We
talk
all
on a
will.
weekend. But it's really easy for us to say yes to stuff, isn't it? So I
Yeah.
think there's that. And also how we work in our businesses. like working out the boundaries within our business as well. So
Yeah.
I have a couple of people in my team, and I'm always conscious of their boundaries because they're both they have children, whereas I don't. So I could voice note all night, having just said I go to bed at 9, but I can have chats quite easily or be up super early, which two of us are, so that's fine. How do you manage boundaries in your business? Like okay, immediate team.
You're right. I'm probably much better with the team or have been in the past. Right now, I only have one casual part-time employee and a couple of regular subcontractors. So it's a little bit easier now. Last year, I had a couple of learning designer slash facilitator folks with me, but circumstances have happened and I've decided just to keep it myself as the core learning designer facilitator. Um, and that feels good. Like, I don't know if we all wrestle with the should I grow my business kind of thing over years. And there comes a point in your success where you kind of have to grow a little bit because so many people want us to do things. I've been very lucky in terms of getting a lot of work all the time. And I'm like, oh, I should grow because then I can say yes. But I realize actually adding more team members, it didn't allow me to say the no's that I needed to say. And I didn't really realize that was going to happen, but I learned that in 2024 and eventually talked with the team and said, I'm not really happy with some of this stuff because growing the team meant I couldn't be as selective. And so now the boundary I'm kind of setting now is I'm not going to grow the team. I'm not going to add more employees. And then I can just pick and choose a little bit more. So it feels kind of like my selfish time is starting, right? But also just I gotta rest. I gotta recover some stuff. And Carla, who works with me, we're in the same boat. We're both mothers. We have families. We have stuff going on, and we're in agreement that this is we're gonna do good work, but we're gonna rest more and not kill ourselves
Ooh, love that.
for our work.
I was just really curious, when you said like you had a team and then you felt like you had to accept the projects, whatever they were. Was that because it was financial and you felt like if you didn't say yes, you wouldn't have the money coming into the business, therefore you couldn't pay people?
Yeah, exactly. Because payroll happens every 2 weeks, doesn't it? And you got to pay them whether or not those contracts are coming in. And so, I was still saying a lot of yeses to those contracts, kind of just knowing that they needed the work.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's stressful. That
and I've gone through slightly same and different in that I always felt it was only me that brings in the work, and therefore my team, like all the facilitators or designers or trainers, are what we have associate contracts, so it would be a subcontractor, I think is the Canadian language. So that's less of a worry. But then I was starting to I have Victoria who does the finances. Emily helps out with tech and social media. And I also used to have someone who'd help me out, Abby, on the corporate side, like project management. And I was just starting to go, and then also some other people to help just like sporadically, like on some design and social media stuff. And I was like, oh my God, like I just felt like I was paying all of them. And therefore I had to keep saying yes to stuff. And that started to freak me out. And then also I got a little bit resentful that I'm like, I'm the only one bringing in the business. And then another part of my brain said, but Kirsty, that's really good that you can bring in that business. Like, you should be really proud of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to do more of it, the business development side of things. And I didn't quite. I wanted to be able to make the shift. Like I go out and find potential clients, and I never was able to really make that shift. I was kind of just dealing with whoever came to me, but I found myself writing a lot of policy and writing stuff down, making process checklists, and it's all good. Like there's so many things about how we do our work that we were able to capture last year, but it was very administrative in some respects as well. And I just like, oh gosh, give me back to the creative side again. I was a bit missing it.
And what's interesting is I was sort of in the same and different. And the bit that lights me up is when I'm teaching facilitation and training and doing train the trainers or running the Flourishing Facilitator program. Like that's where I get loads of energy. And it's like, hold on, I'm not doing that. I'm writing lots of proposals, which is fine. And I love a proposal, don't get me wrong. But it's like, I feel like I'm missing out and I wasn't getting what filled my cup. Yeah. So I think that I can relate to that in terms of a shift.
Yeah.
And also that piece around like, oh, I need to grow a business, I need to make the business bigger. Like, I've always had that inner conversation. Beth shaking her head. It's like, and rolling the eyes. It's like, it's an inner conversation I have all the time. It's like, but according to whom, Kirsty? Like, why do you need to grow the business?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a message there that, and people, it's not like we're the first ones to talk about it, are we?
No.
But it's a good question. We all have to figure out. And I tried, I thought, okay, well, let's see. And I'm always okay with, well, that I tried it and I learned a whole bunch of stuff. And there were a lot of the hard pieces around that, but there were actually a lot of good pieces and wonderful pieces about adding team members. Like I was able to learn too from them,
Yeah.
which, as a learning professional, I love that. Like I
Who
don't want it. I have like a discomfort with it just being just me, right? So it's nice to learn from the team, but it does bring a lot of challenges. And so it feels good to peel it back. But 3 years from now, will I feel differently? Will I want to add on more? Maybe, right? I reserve the right to make the choice.
But also, it's back to conversations we've had with ourselves, with others. It's like, it's our business. We can do with it what we want.
Yeah, that's right.
That's another joy that I think everyone should remember. Just because you are where you are right now in your business, that doesn't mean say it's always going to be like that. Mm-hmm. And it can, I always think of an accordion. Do you know the musical instrument, the accordion that goes in and out? I just think if your business is the sort of bit that stretches and it can sort of grow, it can shrink, and then you just do one arm, so different parts of the business grow and shrink. And I think that's the joy for us of not being really enormous, not being like some of these bigger learning and development businesses that exist. That's harder to adapt.
Oh, totally. And I took my business from a sole, in Canada, we would call it a sole proprietorship, like a, where you're not a separate entity from the business, to a corporation early last year. And, some of that was around the growth piece, but some of it was, I'm 51 and I don't have a pension and I need to look to retirement in whatever that looks like, right?
Yeah.
15 years, something like that. And so having the corporation entity may help me. So there's certain, looking to the future pieces that at this particular age, I don't know if you feel the same way, like that's the part about the business that I have to think about a little bit more now. It's not just the work, it's like the planning and, how much money is going to be in the business for me in the future and that kind of thing. And actually how long I can work, are people going to look at me in 10 years and go, she is totally old to do this work in technology, right? Ed tech. But I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll be 60 and 65 and 75 and whatever. We'll be fine. Yeah.
I had about 3 weeks ago, I had literally a series of conversations over a couple of days with a 30-something, a 28-something, and a 24-year-old something. They were lovely. And I was just like, whoa, like their confidence, their conversations. And then I was like, I don't know if this is what you noticed in Canada. So they were exuding this amazing confidence. And then I scratched below the surface a little bit. And there it was, like the uncertainties, the not sureness. How do you actually do this piece of work or the facilitation of X, Y, or Z? And I suddenly went, and I was sharing, and I was like, to a couple of them, I said, would you like a mentor? And they were like, yeah. And I said, would you reverse mentor? Because I've learned from you today as well, because working with Generation Z, fascinating. So anyway, my point is, I think for me personally, when I get into my 60s, I'm not going to, because we can retire, I don't know the age, 67 in the UK. What's it in Canada?
I don't.
Because both not knowing. 67,
I have no idea.
68?
Well, I guess it depends when you get the government money. Is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah.
I mean, you can retire whenever as a.
Well, that's true. Yes.
But yeah.
I don't know. I think I'll carry on. I see myself, and this is the other thing about turning 50 as well, or 51, is like noticing, coming into, the French call it la troisième, like the third chapter. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lady I've just met, Remy Baker, she's got a great business called The Third Chapter. And it's about like, what do you do now in that final third of your life? And it's like, oh, I'm actually now starting to think about it. Like, what do I want to do? And I don't think I'll stop working because I enjoy it too much. I enjoy the community. I enjoy hanging out. These types of conversations. Maybe I'll just go full in on podcasts and get it totally sponsored. But I think...
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think you're right. We need to start thinking about it. And also, what do we want our businesses to be?
It's, yeah, I love that phrase, la troisième, because I'm in the same boat. I think that, again, you look backward and I go, okay, well, I started my business 13 years ago. And so in some ways there are pieces of it that I'm bored with. And actually, because I wrote my book too, I spent hundreds of hours thinking about certain things in writing that book. And I love writing, and I loved, researching and putting it out there. But I'm bored of myself talking about certain topics, and I don't want to do certain things anymore. So the third section of my life is kind of fascinating, because there's maybe things I can do to make even subtle or maybe more drastic shifts in the type of work that I do. Like, I'm taking editing courses right now at Simon Fraser University online, because editing is a huge part of my work as a learning designer, and Carla, my team, does editing. And the language, I'm interested in language and writing, and just kind of all naturally happens that way. So just educating myself on the field of editing and how it relates to learning design is fascinating. And it's getting me into, plain language and inclusive language and all of those tangential pieces. So now I'm dreaming, well, maybe I could be a nonfiction book editor in the future. Maybe somebody would hire, maybe that's another part of my business that I can add on. Or, because
I love
again,
that.
like, as you said, I get to control what my business is, and we already do editing. And so we haven't actually said we have an editing service, but we do it all the time. And so,
why not?
It's natural, foray. So there's exciting things there.
Something else you said when we were prepping for this is, we own our businesses. Why do we kill ourselves?
Yeah, that's the sad conversation we have
sometimes. It's true.
Yeah. Like I remember that conversation, having it with a girlfriend of mine who also is a facilitator and also owns her own business. And I think she said it while we were walking, or we actually were on a walk, during the day. So that was nice, because we can do that and make those choices to integrate exercise into our day. But we're in the driver's seat and we're overworking, a lot of us. And I just did an episode on keeping burnout at bay, because I was so close to burning out, probably 2 or 3 times last year, and it's not good. And I don't ever want to be in that again. But I almost wanted to do the episode for all of us too, because there's so, women particularly, and I know you don't have kids, but so many people have that extra, not just kids, but caring for our parents. Now our elderly parents is coming in for
so they call that a sandwich.
Yeah,
I call myself an open sandwich, because I have my dad, but then that's top heavy. But I am an open sandwich, I think, is the way I position it.
Yeah.
Can you actually, this is me. I've always done this for the podcast. It's all about me and what I'd like to know. Burnout, because I've never really explored it. Pretty sure I've touched on it without even realizing, and then just brushed it off. Can you describe some of symptoms or things that happen on the edge of burnout, just so that I am aware?
Yeah. Oh, now I can't remember. There is a World Health Organization definition.
Oh, right.
I put it in that episode, but I think one of the things that was striking for me was that, you start to feel negativity towards your work. And in reading that, you kind of reflect back and go, oh yeah, the times when you're like, oh, these clients, blah, 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 they're doing this, and you're kind of ticked off about something, right? And I have to remind myself, actually, I chose to start this business. I actually like so much of my work. But when I start to complain like that, either there's a problem and I have to fix it. It's probably a boundary problem. Or, it's probably because I'm overworking, because I shouldn't be angry about the thing, and I shouldn't be mad about whatever is happening, or I should just have an honest conversation with them about it, right? Like, there's no reason for me to talk that way internally to myself or to colleagues, or, in my team. I don't spread that kind of stuff out in the world, of course. But, when we catch ourselves with that negative frame of mind about our work, I think we have to really explore it.
That's interesting. Were there any physical symptoms as well? Like, is there a tiredness or a...
Oh yeah, I think probably since the pandemic hit, maybe others feel the same. I mean, I'm sitting here in my home office, and I sit here all day long. And especially, we didn't get a lot of facilitation contracts last year. I think I went out maybe twice in person. And so, just sitting here at my desk all day long. And it wasn't just 7 or 8 hours, right? It kind of creeps into 9 or 10, or, I'm checking stuff on my phone. And so just the physical, like I'm always dealing with neck and shoulder tension and that kind of stuff. But I started years ago, I started yoga, and that definitely helps. But I have to pay attention more now than ever before. But
Oh,
the yoga
totally. I get
helps.
that.
Yeah, it's hard. So those
Yeah.
walks and the yoga and all the other exercise, for sure, I have to do.
I think it's catching ourselves. Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing, though, because I think back to what you said about, especially for the women listening to this, women multitask quite naturally and juggle and keep plates spinning. That I know, just watching my dad and my brothers, they're just like, what? How do you do all of that? And you're like, oh, that's really obvious to me. But I know it. And I think it just might be the way we're programmed and the way we do things more than anything else. I'm not saying men can't do it, but I just noticed that women just naturally do things, can do things. Like the mums amongst you listening, I'm always in awe when you just have this list in your head of what the child needs when they've got their dental appointment, that they need new shoes, that the school uniform needs to come. Oh, they're off on a school trip next week. Have you done the packed lunch? Have you signed a letter? Like, that's a full-time job in itself, let alone then running your own businesses.
Yeah, and we still get more of the work on that front. But I've tried to make some changes with that too. I mean, my daughter's actually 17. Tomorrow is her birthday. So she's good. Like, she's so self-sufficient. She just started driving on her own this week, which is, freedom for me. I'm loving it. But it's maybe my husband's mother sometimes needs help, and sometimes she'll ask me to do something that he can do, and I'm happy to help her, but I tend to now delegate that back to him. It's like, he's her son.
Yeah.
So I can help, but chances are it's during my workday or whatever, and he can easily do it at night or whenever. So I tend not to try to take on the things I don't actually need to do, but it is a work in progress.
It is. Have you ever heard of a lady called Mary Portas, Portas?
No.
So she's very well known here in Britain. She has striking cropped red hair, and she wrote a book called Work Like a Woman. And she's also known because in the retail industry, she was very high up at Selfridges.
Okay.
And then she's been a big campaigner for the high street here in the UK. Anyway, her book, Work Like a Woman, is brilliant in terms of it talks to some of the things that we've just spoken to, and how in a heteronormative relationship, the woman will have 3 times the amount of jobs and work than the husband would. Whereas in same gender relationships, it's pretty much 50-50. Even isn't that amazing that the work, that things can get done, the bins can get put out, or the washing up gets sorted, or the washing folded, and it doesn't always. It's just like, well, yeah, of course it's going to get done, but there's something. I swear, this is now going off track from facilitation, running a business, but I think it still comes in though. Like, when you're running your own business, your business is your life, and your life is your business. It starts to become circular.
Yeah. And because my office is in my home, and it's a choice to do that. And the commute is low, and that's great, but it is hard to turn it off. And so now I'm trying to be a little bit better about closing the door and just saying, no, I'm not going to go in there. But then, because I have home things that I need to do on the computer or whatever, it's easy to have it creep back in. But it's a constant struggle.
So we're still quite, as we're recording this, we're still quite early on in 2025. What boundary are you putting in place this year that you're looking to maintain?
I think that the saying yes or no to the right work, it's what I talked about when I just did my episode, and the universe tested me, I think almost right after I said that. A past client came back and said, oh, can you do this thing? But just to be really conscientious about those things that are coming in that I could do, and to draw the line somewhere about what I will and will not do. But it is tough. So kind of have to keep reminding myself about that. And I think that's going to be constant. So the exercise / work balance, we can't really call it a balance too much, can we? But just the keeping care of myself as a person, as a body, as a mind, I guess, outside of my work life is really top of mind for me.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the right projects thing for sure.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, what would mine be? I have a really bad habit of working on the weekends because no kids, single, is the most easy thing for me to do quite naturally, is just on a Sunday, go back upstairs and just knock out a few bits and pieces. But it's like, hold on, Kirsty, like you need to, I think that's one of my boundaries, like not working on the weekends.
But, I have this
keeping
sense
work.
that you're really good at this because it feels like you're always going on some grand adventure and you're somewhere else
no.
and you're out
Beth,
doing like an extreme something.
You're watching the highlight reel on Instagram. You're watching the shenanigans of my life. I haven't been away. I am going away in March. That's all going to come up. So by the time this comes out, I'll have been in France. Going to go to the rugby, which I'm looking forward to, in Wales. So what I've noticed though as well, going into 25, is I actually have got a desire to go out and do more, if that makes versus just staying in a homebody kind of sense. I used to do lots of travel, and that got really shut down obviously over COVID, and then it's taken me like 4 or 5 years to want to go out and do stuff again. That's how I'm feeling.
You and a bunch of other people too.
Well,
I think
all of
right?
us.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a boundary around. I don't know if it's a boundary. It's more of a desire, and this gets me in trouble too because I have all these ideas all the time about what I want to do to, put out there to my community of practice. Like I lead a facilitators group here in Victoria, and now I find myself thinking, well, I could do this with them and I could do that with them because we all really need it. We need the connection. We need to get out in person. We need to get off, the online stuff. And I create online education. I believe in it, but I also believe we need to do something different for sure. And because we're losing touch with each other, and we need to have more in person.
Massively.
Stuff. Yeah.
I hear you. Okay. Should we do some quick fire questions?
Okay.
What advice would you give to someone starting out in the facilitation training world?
I think there's 2 things. Keep practicing, just practice. Find places to practice, whether it's in the voluntary sector or wherever. Just get up and do it and make those opportunities for yourself, and believe in yourself too. Because I think confidence, maybe especially for women too, we see a lot of that lack of, you talked about it too. Sometimes it looks like confidence on the surface, but it's not confidence that we're seeing underneath it. But just, keep working to believe in yourself, because there are all sorts of different facilitators in the world, and we are not cookie cutters of each other, and we need diversity. And the more we can accept and encourage and welcome people who are different from you and I, like if you're watching the video, you see we look a lot alike, right? We're white middle-aged women, and maybe we've our privilege, and so there's room for all of us in the facilitation world. And please, like everybody else that is different from us, keep putting yourself out there.
Yeah, and keep asking for help is what I'd say as well.
Yeah.
In the community spaces that I host as well, when people ask for advice, for ideas, for input, people are really forthcoming. There is no like, well, I'm not going to share that with you.
Oh yeah.
Next question. Who do you follow in social media land that you think others should too?
Oh, it's so hard to name just a few people. Sorry. I was, the people that come to mind are the people that I have interviewed on the podcast, such as yourself. And I think some of the ones that come up for me a lot, who I think are doing really amazing work on social, like in life. And then they talk about it on social media. Jan Kak, Carrie Price, Monsi Jasuja. Who else? Couple of folks in Canada here, Fernando Murray and Carolina Almeida, Wouter Smeets in the Netherlands. Like, just, I hate to keep plugging my podcast, but just look at the people that I've interviewed, and there's amazing folks.
What's the name
in
of your
that
podcast, Beth, by the way?
It's called Facilitating on Purpose.
We'll put a link in the show notes as well to your podcast for sure. Do you have a book to recommend?
I do. I read recently the Inclusive Language Field Guide. I have it right here.
Ooh, who's that by?
This is by Suzanne Wertheim in the States, and subtitle 6 Simple Principles for Avoiding Painful Mistakes and Communicating Respectfully. So from a work perspective, for sure. But she actually told me too that she wrote it in such that I think the first 3 chapters were good for even grandparents learning how to find the right language to interact with their trans grandchild, or, like it's for families and people, as well as people who are in the learning,
Thank
design,
you.
and facilitation world. So yeah, there's always something about our language that we need to keep learning
Yeah,
about. So
I
yeah,
love that.
great book.
Final question. How have you invested in yourself or your business to support you in moving forward?
Well, I told you right now I'm doing the extra training, but I think on the rest and relaxation side, I'm really trying to. I've already been on a cruise this year.
Wow.
and and I've got, a couple other things coming up. I'm going to be in Ontario for a month in the summer visiting my family, but I decided to work from there and just,
Mhm.
meet clients there and so on, but just give myself a little bit of a time and spacedness around being away for a while, and just connecting with family. It's where I grew up,
Amazing.
and so on. So that, and I'm telling everyone I know. So I have the rest deck in front of me now every day, and I'm pulling a card every day. And so it's like a $30 or $40 deck, but it's called 50 Practices to Resist Grind Culture. And so today the card is, I am free, I am rested, I am cared for, I am well. And so these little reminders, right, of just we can do great work, and we can work a lot, but we can't kill ourselves for work, as we've already talked about. Like, we have to rest, and that
Yeah,
helps us actually be better at what we do.
brilliant. Beth, thank you so much for being the guest today on A Facilitator's Journey. We will put connections for your LinkedIn, for your website, for your podcast, and even the book. So that will all be in the show notes. Is there anywhere else people can find you that you'd want to point them to?
I think that's it. Yeah, website, kind of, you can find everything from there. And it's been such a pleasure. Thanks for initiating
No,
this
it's been
conversation.
awesome. Thank you very much. Love that conversation with Beth. Really interesting. It was a bit of a loving. Sorry, guys and girls. I think the thing for me though is turning and flipping to like 51, not just even 50, has been a change. And it's almost like I feel more centered in myself. And I think hearing Beth talk the way she talked, that's a truth for her as well. Some epiphanies of we run our own businesses, so why are we killing ourselves? Like, do the work that you want to do the work that brings you joy and makes you happy, versus saying yes to things that you know is going to make your eyes roll or your stomach groan or give you the someday scaries. And also be proactive in how we design our lives, full stop. I think that's a big thing. I hope you enjoyed that conversation, though. I thoroughly did. At this time, we have still got SoFest build up. Maybe you're coming. Let us know on the socials if you are. If you are still thinking about coming, go check the website, because it's getting updated daily with all the speakers and the workshop hosts, the activators, even some sponsors now trickling in. It's got about 75 people. The ambition is still to have 100 people in a field, physically and metaphorically. So if that's you, feel free to come and knock on the door. If you're listening to this after the 12th of June, 2025, SoFest has happened. But look out for SoFest 26, maybe SoFest 27 if you're that far in advance in the future. Anyway, it's been great having you here today. It's been lovely talking to Beth, and I look forward to you pulling up a chair, grabbing a cuppa with me in the future.